So how do we get to the point where you can't even talk about things that are scientifically consensed? That's not a f***ing word. Here's one. If you donate enough money to sex science, will it tell you what you want to hear? And I think this might actually be like a broader question just about conflict of interest between funding and research. Now, someone like yourself who worked in research, what's your take on that?
That's an excellent question. I would say currently, as far as I know, I think funding agencies are still ethical. I hope it continues to be that way. I mean, I can't speak for all, but my sense within the field is that, the agencies are still ethical, but we're definitely seeing this trend where research is being influenced by political ideas, and that it's lucrative for people to put these particular ideas out there. So we'll see, say, certain journals publishing papers that claim to find certain things because they know that the public is going to really like it. It's going to be splashy, it's going to be controversial, and controversial in a good way. Mm-hmm. And so that's why we see this information getting out there. So, I think it's really important if people have an issue with that to say so, because it's to the point now that information gets, goes to the media disseminates it, and this is how we now talk about these issues, but they're not actually based in fact.
How much would it cost me to fund a study that says sex with me is statistically way better than any other kind of sex? Like, how much money are we talking about?
I don't know if you can put a number on that.
Can't. Priceless. If being trans is being born the opposite gender, brain, then how is gender a social construct if trans people tend to follow those opposite gender roles? Can you speak on that?
I have actually talked about this previously, and I would say you need to ask the people who are saying that because it makes absolutely no sense. So some people will deny the effects of prenatal testosterone, say that it has no bearing on biological sex or gender, but then in the same breath, they'll also say that trans people need testosterone to transition. So, it really doesn't follow.
Part of your research was using fMRI to monitor brains. So how do trans people respond to fMRI scans?
So there haven't actually been any fMRI studies yet looking at gender identity specifically within transgender people. With regards to homosexuality, though, it's really interesting. So with regards to sexual arousal, there's a very reliable network of brain regions that activate when someone is aroused. So we see with, say, if we compare straight and gay men, this same network activates when straight men are looking at heterosexual pornography or looking at, say, nude pictures of women. The same network is activated when gay men are looking at homosexual pornography or images of nude men.
Oh. So it's the same flow, it's just something else is getting it flowing.
Different target, yep.
You wrote an op-ed in the LA Times titled, "Are Gender Feminists and Transgender Activists Undermining Science?" Are they? What do you think?
Oh, there definitely are, without question. So with that op-ed, I spoke about how, some feminists will choose to deny the science that shows very clearly that there are biological sex differences in the brain that are not due to socialization. And with regards to transgender activists, I talk about desistance in children with gender dysphoria. So this is a very controversial topic.
What is that?
So across all 11 studies that have ever been done on this topic, whether you look at small sample sizes or large sample sizes, or you look at which research team did the research, consistently between 60, so 60, and 90% of gender dysphoric children outgrow their dysphoria by puberty. So most of them will grow up to be usually gay, not always, but they won't be transgender in adulthood. Mm-hmm. So this is really controversial to talk about, and I understand why, because the fear, I think, is that if we say, some of these kids don't stay trans, well, does that then justify denying transgender adults or people post-puberty in terms of medical intervention or any sort of, help that they might seek? I don't think so. I think it's important for us to look at the research and, if most of these kids are going to outgrow the way they feel, then transitioning will not actually be beneficial for them. We'll have high rates of kids detransitioning, so they will be transitioning back to their birth sex. And even a social transition for kids can be a very tumultuous thing to go through if they have to detransition from that.
Is there actually a measurable difference between sex and gender? Is there a metric to determine trans versus non-trans besides feelings?
Research has shown, with regards to brain imaging, that trans people, their brains are shifted in the direction of the sex they identify as. But the thing is, these studies have been conflated with sexual orientation. So all the people who take part in these studies, they are attracted to people who share their birth sex. So it's not clear whether these differences that we're seeing in white matter or in the connective tissue in the brain, whether that's due to being trans or due to being gay. So hopefully more research in the future will help us better tease this apart.
Thanks for your questions, guys. If you have any more, be sure to share them in the comments and subscribe to our channel, We the Internet TV, and follow us on Twitter and Facebook for new videos every week. And make sure to follow Dr. Soh at Dr. Debra Soh on Twitter.